The latest Pompey news, updates every day from the Pompey Sound news desk.
Here's John Messino's current assessment of Iban Bawat.
We obviously signed Iban off the back of what he did at Fulham and loans abroad, where he played in 2 top European leagues. Unfortunately, he then spent 12 months on the sidelines, and when he came back in pre-season, had a few more niggles. He had that pain management issue with his knee which took him a long time to get over, so by the time he actually played minutes in pre-season, his first significant game was Havant and Waterlooville on the AstroTurf pitch. He was just getting going again, and by that point we were very close to the season and he couldn't quite get into the starting lineup. So it has been a tough introduction for him. Iban is athletically very good, he's good on the ball when he settles himself and wants to play forward, and he can defend very well, which we saw against Wrexham. We need to see much more of that. When we decided to go to a back 3, that suits him quite well. He's able to go really aggressive because he's got the cover in behind from another centre-half, and plays himself slightly wider. There are obviously loads of his areas he can improve a bit. He has the raw attributes to be a good player.
Once again, John Messino reminding us the importance that he attaches to the V word, versatility. If he's got a player who can play in 3 positions or 2 different formats, then that's a player that he cherishes because it gives him options, of course, in terms of selecting people on merit or being forced into team changes because of injury. And it also gives him that option of changing the format. So what he's saying out loud to Iban Bawat is, you're a left back, you're a left-sided centre-half, you're a left-sided centre-half of 3 centre-halves, if we're playing 3 at the back, a left-sided centre-half of 2 centre-backs if we're playing 4 at the back. You'll do.
Injury updates. The club is managing several key injuries, though some players are nearing a return. Connor Shaughnessy, on track with his recovery from a hamstring tear. Thomas Waddingham, the Australian striker, suffered a setback with a quad injury and is expected to be out for another 6 to 8 weeks. Adrian Segcic, the winger, is set to return to training in late November after an ankle injury. Callum Lang and Nicola Schmid, both are expected to return to the squad after the international break. Conor Ogilvie, left-back, is out for up to 3 months with a knee injury. Manager and club decisions. Keeper selection dilemma. Manager John Messino faces a useful headache in the goalkeeper position, as Nicola Schmid is nearing a return from a broken hand. Josef Bursic has impressed in Schmid's absence, giving Messino a tough decision for the Millwall match. Transfer strategy. Messino has stressed the need for flexibility in the club's transfer strategy for the January window, due to the widespread injuries. Recruitment issues. Recent recruitment of young Australian players has been hampered by repeated injury problems.
Yeah, we gather, we haven't seen anything ourselves at Pompey Sound, but we gather that there are a few little dark mutterings from those who do like to take issue and find fault over the business of what is being described in places as the Australian experiment. Well, it looks to us as though if it is an experiment, it's going rather well. And we are about to split the atom because we're picking up players of tremendous quality and potential for a song. And they are building their own little sort of subculture within the club. We do see them on occasions when the players are together on the pitch. We often see them knocking around together and sharing an Australian-type laugh. And no doubt they meet up for pizza from time to time or whatever. So it's not an experiment. And the fact that 1 or 2 or 3 of our Australian acquisitions have been injured at around about the same time can only be just bad luck and coincidence, and that the idea that there is something threatening, vulnerable about a player who's had to fly halfway across the world to get here, frankly, if you didn't know that such people actually hold on to such strange thoughts in all seriousness, it would be quite a good joke.
John Messino is talking about his overall take on the current championship teams.
There's some sides who've surprised with early form to be where they are. My overall take so far is we got completely blown away from Birmingham, but apart from that have been in every game so far. We haven't quite performed enough in terms of wins, but it's a very tight league. I've not looked at any of the sides really and thought they're going to blow everyone away. At the level everyone can compete with everyone, as I think we've seen. We watched Wrexham recently take apart Coventry, who a few days prior took us apart and have taken pretty much every other team apart. I suppose that's the nature of it. We lost to Coventry, who were flying away at the top of the league. We lost to Stoke, who've demolished 2 sides since then, scoring 8 goals. And we lost to Birmingham, who then demolished Millwall, who'd been one of the outstanding sides. So it's absolutely wide open, and anyone can beat anyone.
And of course, we all tend to forget that the whole point of leagues, whatever standard, the Premier League down to the lowest of the low Sunday pub team leagues, the whole point of leagues is that more or less all the opposition, more or less everybody in that league, is more or less of the same calibre. Of course, there are disparities that exist because perhaps one club has to do more travelling to their away games than everybody else. One club or several clubs might have particular home advantage because of the culture of their home crowd and the home stadium. They may have a manager who is on the up and who has only been with them for 3 games and they've won all 3 and they're flying high with the new manager syndrome. And of course injuries. There are all sorts of things that tip the balance one way or another between teams that are in the same league. But if you look at the Championship, there is one factor where there is an enormous diversity between some teams and others, and that is quite simply the material value of the squad. And if you look at the 24, and I'm not going to go into great details because it's something really you want to have in front of you on paper, and I'll just have to do a very quick outline, a profile of what you discover if you look at the various values of the various squads across the Championship. And as you would expect, of the 8 clubs whose squads are valued at over €100 million by Transfer Market, 2 of them are at the top, Coventry and Middlesbrough, both valued at 108 million. But then you go down and down and down and you find clubs like Birmingham who are 102 million euros and they're down at 11th. Leicester are below them. Leicester are virtually in the bottom half of the Championship and they're valued at 168 million. And just about the 2 richest clubs, Ipswich, OK, they're 7th. Southampton, who are almost as valuable as are Ipswich, 189 million euros, are 17th, and they are not pulling up trees. There's time, of course, for them to come some sort of good. But what is worth noting is that in the top 2/3 of the Championship, money does not buy you success. The value of the squad that you paid for. Right. But if you get down into the bottom third, which is where we are, and Blackburn are, and Oxford and Sheffield Wednesday are, all of the sides, with the exception of Sheffield United, who are worth 133 million euros, all the sides down there are done on a shoestring. The squads have been brought in on a shoestring. The most shoestring of them all is Sheffield Wednesday, whose squad is worth 20 million euros. But Pompey come hard on the heels of Sheffield Wednesday, really. Oxford, 35 million, Pompey, 38 million, Blackburn, 37 million. And these are the bottom 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 teams. So there is a very clear equation between the money that is splashed out purchasing players. Of course, we cannot go into the salaries of players in any great detail because whilst that can be speculated, there's nothing concrete to go on and the deals are quite complicated anyway. So just sticking to the transfer value of each of the squads in the Championship, the sides down towards the bottom of the table are would be less expensive if you were to buy them out purely as football talent than the sides at the top. And I guess you would predict that, wouldn't you? But it gets more interesting if you take out the loan players, because there are more loan players towards the bottom of the Championship than there are at the top. A number of clubs have no loan players whatsoever. Pompey's loan players amount to 10 million euros. Okay, so you can take 10 million euros off the 38 million that the squad is worth, because that 10 million, that belongs to the parent clubs of the players that we've borrowed, which means that the actual value on the transfer market of the players who are contracted to Portsmouth is 28 million euros, which is higher than Sheffield Wednesday, who are 12 million euros. If you take away their loan players, they've got £8 million worth of loan players. And we're down there with Oxford, who've got 11 million euros of loan players, taking the value of the players that they own and purchased and have contracted to them of 26 million. So when you get down to, and I'm going to say it hesitatingly, when you get down amongst the dead men, all right, the squads are worth less on the transfer market, and they're worth even less if you take out the players who don't belong to those clubs anyway because they're there on loan. So, although a league is meant to be level for devils, if you take a line through some clubs and attach it to some other clubs who have spent that much more money acquiring the squads that they've got, it is a diverse or indeed unfair playing field.